In short, that is why I didn't make a YouTube video last year, because I guess I almost died and I was in Japan or some shit. I was gonna record another like year in review type of video. Let's see. Every year I do a thing. Oh my god, this is a Japan video. Okay, here we go. Birthday reboot. Daily Dave number 40. No, that's 2 years ago. Oh god. Oh, I've lost track of time, dude. Oh no, I didn't do one last year. You know why? I was in Japan last year. My friend Bruce and I had started talking about going on a trip together, and he wanted to take his best friend along and his name is Paul. Paul had never been to Japan before, so Bruce and I. Context is that, you know, we met through Anime Expo staffing, and so we were already diehard anime fans and stuff like that. So for us, you know, going to Japan and all that, it's a totally natural thing. And we had both been. I used to live there. Blah blah blah. Right. So the three of us were going to go on a trip together, and the weekend we were supposed to go, like the biggest typhoon ever. Well, not the biggest one ever, but one of the biggest typhoons ever, Hagibis, was going to pass over Japan. And we're like, oh man, I don't know about this, right? So that's the context of like us trying to like get there. But anyway, there was like about a few weeks, a month prior to when I was about to leave, like I went to the restroom and like I had trouble passing urine. And I was like, whoa, like this is like bad. Like it was like a burning sensation. So I went to the urgent care the next day. And I went over there and I told them what was happening. It hurts when I pee. And so they're like, let's run some tests, you know, pee in a cup, take a blood test, STD test, etc. Right? And they're like, we're gonna send it to the lab and we're gonna we'll let you know the results. But in the meantime, you know, we'll give you some antibiotics because they're very typical. Like we think you probably have a UTI, a urinary tract infection, and so we're gonna give you what's like normally prescribed for that. I started taking these antibiotics, and I feel better. I'm like, okay, great. You know, I'll be totally fine. It's no problem, right? I finished the antibiotics, and then like a week or two later, I don't feel like 100% good, right? And so I start having problems again. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is really weird, right? So there was one night where I couldn't sleep because I was having trouble going to the restroom. And so now I'm like, okay, this is really bad. And I'm getting really close to my trip, right? This was like I started asking people like, oh, what does this mean? Like, you know, have you ever experienced this before? And they're like, oh man, that's really weird. And the lab had called me and they left me a message and they said, there were no traces of any like STIs or a UTI. So they're like, and we know we gave you antibiotics, but we hope you're feeling better. So that literally meant the antibiotics were like, I was not supposed to take them. Because at that point, well, technically, like I didn't have an infection. And so I'm like, what? But since I had like felt better, I thought, okay, it should be fine. So the second time around, I go back to the urgent care and I'm like, listen, like, I don't know what's going on. And the doctor was like, well, you should probably just make an appointment with a urologist because, you know, this, like, we can't really figure this out. And it's like, but don't worry, like, guys your age, like, this happens all the time. And I'm like, what? Like, why should I not worry about this? This is legitimately a problem. Like, this was not a problem for me for, like, my whole life. And now you're telling me, like, this is normal? Like, I don't think so, you know? So they tested me again. And the results, when they came back, negative on everything. They even did, like, a pre-diabetic test. Like, nope, that's not it either. I was like, okay, great. I'm glad I made that appointment with the urologist, right? So I go to the urologist, and this is the week of or the week prior to me leaving. So I go there, and the urologist asked me a bunch of questions, asked me about my symptoms, checks me out, and he says, you know, it's probably prostatitis. Guys your age, oof, when you're reminded of how old you're getting. Yeah, it's messed up. Like, it doesn't, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me to, like, say that to someone. But anyway, speaking of bedside manner, so this urologist is like, you probably have prostatitis. Do you know what that is? I'm like, no, how am I supposed to know what that is? And he's like, you have an inflamed prostate. And I was like, how does that happen? He's like, I don't know. Like there can be any number of reasons. Like maybe there's bacteria there. Maybe you got infected from, it's a secondary infection from something else. But anyway, the way we treat this is we give you a month's worth of antibiotics, and there's this other drug that helps you like pee better. And if it's bothering you, take an Advil twice a day. And I was like, okay. Then he asked me, do you have any allergies? And I'm like, no. And he was like, okay, I can prescribe you ciprofloxacin. So Cipro is a commonly prescribed antibiotic. So I was taking that earlier. And I was like, wait a minute, hold on. When I took Cipro, I had some skin issues because one of the side effects of Cipro is that when you walk around in the sun, or if you are exposed to sun, your skin gets damaged. And like, it was like legit. Like I like going out for walks just like on my breaks. And so while I was taking Cipro, I would take these like, 10, 15 minute, maybe half an hour walk. And I noticed that I was getting like peeling skin on my body wherever I had exposure to the sun. And I was like, okay, so when I took Cipro, like this was an issue. So he's like, okay, I'll give you Bactrim instead. And I was like, okay. He's like, like Bactrim is like commonly prescribed or whatever. I'm like, all right. So it's like, you gotta take one of those each day. Was it 1 or 2 every day? It's 2. I hated it because it was like, I hate these antibiotics because you have to take them at a certain time every single day. You have to rotate them too. It's like every 12 hours. And like, you have to try your best not to like leave the cycle of taking these pills just because that's how they work. And he was like saying, because it's your organ, you have to use a lot of this drug to penetrate and actually like, do what you want it to do. So I'm like, okay, let's just go with that, right? So I have this Bactrim, or this generic version of Bactrim, and I'm packing my bags and stuff like that. And I'm getting ready to go. So my sister is a pharmacist, and she stopped by the house to like hang out a little bit. And I was eating dinner that day, and the typhoon was coming, so they actually delayed my flight by 2 days. Right. What ended up happening was I was supposed to fly out on, I believe, a Thursday afternoon, and it would have been really comfortable, and like, we wouldn't have to get to the airport till like 1 or 2. But no, they're like, typhoon's coming, Japan's closing all of its ports, and yeah, we're just gonna have to reschedule. We'll let you know what we're gonna do. And I was like, okay, great. So I start taking these antibiotics. I tell my sister about everything that happened and the my doctor's visits and stuff like that. And she was like, oh, I've taken Bactrim before, but I had an allergic reaction to it. So you might want to like look out for that. I was like, oh, like what would that entail? And she was like, yeah, I got like a rash on my skin and stuff like that. So if you see that, you should stop taking it. And I was like, okay, well, I seem fine so far. And she's like, okay, as long as you're fine, it's good. And I was like, all right. But I noticed that night, like, I didn't really have an appetite for what I was eating. And I found it kind of like, I guess, normal, so to speak. I already am not good at like eating a lot anyway. So I just figured, I'm just not in the mood for like finishing this entire bowl of pho, right? Okay. So we're waiting for the reschedule of our flight. I get an email that says we're leaving the next day at like 8 in the morning or something. I don't know. Like it was something like really early, like 10 a.m. maybe. So we had to be at the airport pretty early. So I went to go stay at Bruce's house, and we took like a shuttle van up to the airport. And then when we got there, they're like, sorry, the airports at Japan the airports in Tokyo are still closed. So we're just going to have to push the flight date back again. And here's a $20 voucher to use at the cafeteria. I was like, oh my God, dude. So like I take this $20 voucher to get like a pizza or some shit. And a pizza costs $20 at LAX, just letting you know. So yeah, that's like $20 a mega lol. Exactly. So I'm like, okay, great. Fantastic. So we go back home. I go back to like my house, and my parents were out of town, but then they came back. So they're like, we can take you to the airport tomorrow. Like, don't worry about it. And so I'm like, okay, whatever. And then the next day we go early again, get to the airport. cool, we get to fly out. And so, yay, like I get to start my Japan trip, right? So we get to Tokyo. We have a good like first couple of nights because I get to meet up with a friend I haven't seen in a while. We're just discovering stuff here and there. Really cool. Our trip was planned as like we'll land in Tokyo, wait a few days. It was supposed to be 4, but we lost 2 days because of Hagibis, right? The typhoon. So it became 2 days in Tokyo, 2 days in Kyoto, 2 days in Osaka, 2 days in Kinosaki, and then a week in Tokyo. So it's almost as if we like got there and then like had to kind of rush because then we didn't have like the buffer time that we originally scheduled for. So we embark on our journey to Kyoto, and we planned it so that we would be in Kyoto during my birthday. So on October 16th, I believe. Yeah, on October 16th in Japan, we headed down to Nagoya via the bullet train. And while I was on the train though, and so like what you do is you buy like a bento box and you take it with you onto the train and then you eat it like because there's trays and it's like a really comfortable train and all that. But it was like packed. Like there were like everyone was going down in this direction. And so our plan was actually to just go down to Nagoya to meet one of my friends, just to say hi, hopefully like maybe get a coffee with him or something, and then we'll go to Kyoto after. So I'm in this bullet train and I'm eating this bento. I'm not even like a quarter way through it and I like feel really nauseated. I don't have an appetite. I'm not enjoying like the feeling of stuffiness, and this like I was like, am I getting motion sick? And this is like not normal because like honestly I've been on the bullet train so many times that like I know how to handle it. Like it's not an issue for me. So I was getting really weirded out. But to be fair, I was sat between two salarymen, and I'm in the middle chair and I'm like, oh, this sucks, because I was basically thinking like, oh man, I'm trapped. And I think I'm having a panic attack because my heart was throbbing like crazy. And I was starting to like really feel like, oh my gosh, like something is wrong with me right now. And so I almost felt like I was going to throw up. And I wanted the guy like next, like this is really dumb. I should have gotten up, but I was afraid of like throwing up while getting up. So I was freaking out because I was like, I need to know where the bathroom is. I need to know how to get there like really quick. But I wanted to wait till the guy next to me got up to do something. Then I could just like rush away, right? This guy reaches into his bag and pulls out a beef bowl and then just starts eating it. And I'm like, oh my God. And like the smell of it like came out. And like, remember, I'm like, I have no appetite now. And like, I just don't like anything. So I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna die. So I just tried to like hold it in, like just keep my composure for as long as I can. And then like my friend who's sitting in another row texted me and was like, oh, like we're gonna get off at Nagoya soon. And I was like, okay. And I was like, this is the moment of truth. And so we arrive at Nagoya. A bunch of people get off. We get off. And then once we leave the doors of the bullet train, I'm like, oh, like I could finally like breathe in fresh air again. And I felt a lot better. But I was like, yeah, it was really weird. I don't know what happened. Like, I just don't have a good appetite. Maybe like I didn't sleep enough. I don't know. Something's going on. And they're like, okay, well, just take it easy, right? I was like, yeah, I'll take it easy, So we wait for our friend to come pick us up. And so he drives to the station and he stops by, we get into his car, and then he gives us kind of like a tour of like the Nagoya expressways and, it's giving us some good, like, good stories and talking to us about this and that. Then he takes us to his workplace. He works at like a kind of like, not a car dealership exactly, but like he helps fix up cars for people. Or his shop helps fix up cars, and he'll like pick up nice, like, like racing cars, basically like GTRs, Supras, and then like drive them to clients and stuff like that. It's definitely like a specialty shop. So he like drove us to the shop, let us look at the cars. We met his boss. His boss wanted to sell us a car, and we're like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. And so yeah, we're not gonna buy a car. So he loses interest pretty quickly, and eventually it's like, okay, our friend's gonna go back to work, and he's gonna call a cab, so that we can take the cab back to the station and then continue our journey to Kyoto. And at Kyoto, um it was like evening already. It was almost evening. So we went to this like cultural showcase where we saw um like geisha or maiko, like geisha in training, and some god, what is it, like poem recital and like puppets and stuff like that. So it was a really cool showcase of a tea ceremony. It's a really cool showcase of kind of like traditional Japanese culture, and it's like it fits very well with like Kyoto and tourism. And it was something I had seen before, but I really wanted like my friends to see it purely because it was like, hey, this will give you a good rundown of like what the city is like, or what kind of the attraction is here. So we see that, and then we're like, oh, we're pretty hungry. We should go get some dinner. And so Bruce like always has a plan when it comes to like food. So he had mapped out like where we were gonna go to get like dumplings or something like that, right? And so we're walking around, and it was feeling, Kansai is a little bit cooler in terms of temperature than Kanto. So like the west of Japan, maybe because of the proximity to water or whatever. I don't know. But it's like a little bit chillier over there. And so I start feeling the breeze. I'm like, ooh, that's kind of, yeah, it's, all right. I can feel the autumn weather. And all of a sudden I'm like rubbing my nose, and then I see blood. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have like a bloody nose. And I was like, we should go to a drugstore real quick. I want to see if they have like either what was it, like the saline rinse or something to kind of like clot my nose. Bruce was like, there's this stuff you can use that kind of like auto clots your blood clots for you. So like we should see if they have that. So we go there and we kind of ask them via Google Translate, like, do you have this? And they're like, no, we don't. All we have is like a saline rinse, and then there's the typical stuff like a Q-tip and like petroleum jelly. So I buy all of those things: the swabs, the petroleum jelly, and the nasal rinse, I believe. And so I was like, can you use your restroom to kind of take care of this? And like, yeah, you totally can. And so I asked Bruce to come in with me, because what I realized is like I don't really have the hands to like hold this and then like take care of everything. Here's the crazy part though. Bruce was like, I'm a master at like bloody noses, and I can take care of this for you. So it's like, assume the position, like head down, pinch here, tissue up here, and when it starts clotting and the dripping slows down, then you can like, apply petroleum jelly, heal the wound. And then after that, you start doing the saline rinse to, like a day or two later, you start doing the saline rinse to keep it moisturized. My nose didn't clot until an hour later. And that was like, that's really strange, right? Because typically when you get a bloody nose, you can clot it within 5 to 15 minutes, right? So like we're getting a little worried, and I was like, this is a lot rougher than I expected this to be. So we take care of that, do the clot. Okay, let's go. Well, I had lost I had lost some blood by then, so I'm like, okay, So Bruce was like, how about you go back to the hotel and just chill, and then Paul and I will go find food, pick it up, and then bring it over to you. And I was like, okay, great. So they go ahead and do that. I just try to relax in the hotel room. They come back, we have dinner, and it's like, well, tomorrow's your birthday, so I'm gonna take you to this nice tempura kaiseki place, and we can go get your like favorite ramen, and we can just take it easy too if you're not feeling well. Because he was like, maybe you're just a little under the weather and you just need to rest it off. And I was like, yeah, that's probably it. So we're like, okay. The next day, I wake up and I have a fever, and I'm like, oh no, like Bruce, like I don't know what's going on. And he's like, oh no, you might have the flu. Honestly, you might have caught it like right when we got here. So he was like, all right, well, we'll do the lunch, and then you can like chill out. Paul and I will figure out what to do. We can have dinner together, and then just take it easy because we're gonna go to Osaka the next day. So we're like, all right. So we have this tempura kaiseki, like $100 per person meal. And it's good. It's just I can't really taste anything. So I feel bad about that. But it was, it's a nice fancy meal. And then I go back to the hotel to basically sleep, right? And then Bruce and Paul come back and they're like, let's go to Ichiran, your favorite ramen place. I'm like, okay, sure. So I go there, and I can only eat like a third of the bowl. And this is really wild, because I was like, this is insane. Like there's never a time where like I don't like this. And so this is where I could tell I was not feeling well. Well, I mean, obviously I wasn't feeling well for like a lot of reasons, but I was like, this is really messed up. So we go back to the hotel, and I'm about to go take a shower, or yeah, take a shower. And so like I remove like my shirt, and then I see like this region of like rash on my skin. And I take a picture of it, and I sent it to my sister, and I was like, "Is this the type of rash you're talking about when it came to your allergic reaction?" And so like I put my phone away. I'm like, he's just not gonna respond immediately, right? Time zone difference and stuff like that. So I go to the shower. I wash up, and then I'm like, I want to relax. I'm gonna use the bathtub. So I fill up the bathtub. I turned on the heater from the outside because I wanted to keep it like nice and warm. So I get in the bathtub and I sit there. But then the whole time, my head really just starts like pounding, and it just feels like, oh, like it's way too hot. So I'm like my friend Bruce was about to go to bed, and I was like, Bruce, are you out there? He's like, yeah, what's up, Dave? I was like, can you turn off the heater? It's the orange button. He's like, all right. So he presses it, and then I'm like, okay, it should get cooler now. It gets hotter, and I'm like, oh no, like what's going on? Turns out he actually pressed the button and changed it from low to high. So it was actually getting hotter in the bathroom, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Like I didn't know, but I just started feeling not good. So I was like, I need to get out of the bathtub myself, and I need to just dry up and just, cool down and stuff like that. Well, I get out of the bathtub and I don't feel really great. So then I like throw up into it after I drained it. And he's like, are you okay? And I was like, yep, just throw up. Just threw up. Don't worry about it. Okay. He's like, yeah, just let me know if you need anything else. And he was basically like in and out of sleep, and he had heard that. And so I clean up, I get dressed, and I'm like, oh my God, dude. And I think my sister did reply at that point, and she was like, yes, that's it. Stop taking the meds. I was like, okay. Oh boy. So I wake up the next day and I don't want to move. And it's like, I wake up at like 10 a.m. or whatever. We had to check out at like 11, and we had to leave for Osaka. And I was like, Bruce, I don't want to move. And he's like, okay, here, like Paul and I will help pack up your stuff, put on these sweatpants so that you feel more comfortable. And we'll try our best to like make do. And so they were really really good to me for like taking care of all this stuff. And yeah, I was just like really not into anything. Like I put my mask on, put a hat on, moved really slowly. We took a cab to the train station. And then from there we took a short bullet train ride down to Osaka. From Osaka we took a cab to our hotel. But by that time I was like all I wanted to do was sleep everywhere. And apparently, like when we were in the cab together, I was just like laying like this. My friend was like, dude, do you see this? His skin's turning red. I had turned like bright red. So that's cool, right? We get to the hotel, and they're like, hey, our friend's like feeling really sick. Can you check in early? Because we're not supposed to check in until like the evening. And they're like, yeah, sure. Like we'll take care of this for him. And so they take me to my room, put my luggage down, pretty much throw myself on the bed, and I'm staying there for the next 2 days. Bruce came in to check up on me like multiple times, just like, hey, do you need any food? Do you need anything? You need water, etc. And yeah, my skin was completely bright red, and I was like freaking out. I start like all I can really do is look at my phone and like just do nothing. Like I'm resting in an attempt to like heal, quote unquote. So I start looking up stuff on my phone, and I'm like, I have these symptoms. What could this be? Is this related to the antibiotics? And then I start looking up like Bactrim and side effects and then allergic reactions to this drug. And it's like things such as fever, nausea, loss of appetite, skin turning red, rashes. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I think I have an allergy to this antibiotic that I was taking for like a week straight. And so I was trying to keep in touch with like my sister and like tell her what was going on. And I was, telling Bruce about it. And then at some point my red skin started turning like the glowing red would go away, but it was replaced by like these purple blotches, and it started looking like I was like a burn victim or something like that. It was really freaking me out. And I started looking up stuff like how much are hospital costs in Japan, like just in case I need to go somewhere, like because at that time it seemed really like really bad. I was like, what is going on, you know? So I was looking into that, and apparently Bruce and Paul were looking into that too. And Paul said, like, Bruce was like, we might need to take him to the hospital, and Paul was like, give him another day, and we'll see what happens. And I was ready to kind of cancel on the Kinosaki trip, because Kinosaki was another 2 hours away, and it's an onsen town. And I'm like, I'm gonna be taking off my clothes and looking like this in front of everyone. Like, this is gonna freak people out, you know? But he came over to my room and said, like, listen, like, just rest it out, see how you feel in the morning, and you know, like, if you're really not feeling good, we can just not go. But that night, the last night in Osaka, like, I felt a lot better because I wasn't taking the drugs anymore. It was just that, like, I had this burn victim look, and we went downstairs. We went to go get some ramen because it was like at the hotel lobby they served ramen, and I was like, great. So I was like, yeah, I think it was those drugs, and I'm just gonna stop all of it. He's like, yeah, it's a good idea. It's a good idea if you stop all of it. Advil thins your blood. If you have an allergic reaction to this drug, you know, you can't keep using it. So, like, you know, cleared all that out. I'm like, okay, great. And the next morning, feeling pretty good. We go get some okonomiyaki and yakisoba, and yeah, it was really cool. And then we left for Kinosaki, had a really good time there at this like romantic looking onsen town, and it's great. So the rest of my Japan trip, fantastic. So when I came back, I detailed all of this to like my sister and people, and I went back to the urologist and I was like, listen, I think I have a Bactrim, or I think I have a sulfa allergy. I looked it up, and it's Bactrim belongs to a family of drugs called sulfa drugs. They, like, I don't know if it's like sulfur compound specifically, but anyway, they're called sulfa drugs, and there's a family of them. Bactrim's one of them, and the generic version of it is part of that too. And I was like, yeah, so this is a problem. And he was like, what makes you think that? And I was like, buddy, like, let me tell you about all this shit that happened and all these symptoms I had. And he's like, it sounds like you have a sulfa allergy. I was like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. And he was like, oh, but the fever, you know, doesn't sound right. Maybe you had an infection or something. I was like, Jesus Christ. So anyway, not a fan of this doctor. Terrible bedside manner. Because, like, originally, oh my gosh, I forgot about this too, but he was like, I could check your prostate, but that would mean I have to stick my fingers up your butt. But it's not my butt, so I don't really care. And I was like, dude, like, come on. But yeah, I was just not impressed with, like, this whole thing. And he was like, I can give you a different antibiotic. But at that time, like, I didn't really have problems. Like, one time I had pain, and I took some Advil, and I felt better. But other than that, like, those symptoms that I experienced, did not come back. I wasn't like 100%, but I definitely wasn't like lower than 80%. And to this day, like, not particularly an issue. So it was really, really weird. Like, I might have just nuked my body, right? But yeah, I was like not happy with the care I got. He gave me some new antibiotics. I didn't take them. I just kept them because he said if these symptoms ever return, then take the full course of the Cipro instead. I was like, okay, great. Looks like the drug fixed the issue, but the side effects might not have been worth. The thing is, I didn't finish the entire course. And so that's like considered not a good thing with antibiotics because, you know, well, you know, of course, in this case, I talked to my sister about it and she said, once your skin starts turning purple, you are one step away from anaphylactic shock. And that's when you need to go to the emergency room, right? I was like, oh my God. So she was like, yeah, it's really bad that it got to that point, but it's a good thing you stopped because then you were okay after that. So yeah, yeah, honestly, maybe the drug did like, honestly, because of how badly it nuked my body, I think, yeah, probably helped get rid of some stuff, but yeah, was the cost worth it? No, absolutely not. Apparently I could have like died or some shit at some point. So, yeah, that's what happened. And to this day, I have certain kind of like gastrointestinal problems that I'm not super sure about. That I think, you know, like I think my gut biome was ruined so hard that I've had trouble kind of recovering from that because only a month like later, I tried to go get ramen with some friends and they had this special like spicy paste. Granted, I'm like really bad with spice anyway. And I probably have like developing problems with acid reflux, but I like had a little bit of this spice and then I felt like I needed to throw up like all day. I had to go to like a 7-Eleven to get some Tums to like, you know, reduce the acid. And then when we went for dinner, we went to Red Rock, and Red Rock uses a lot of black pepper in on their meat. And that was it, that alone was enough to make me like flip out again. And it was just so bad because I was like, please get me Alka-Seltzer, some soda water or something. Like, and I felt so bad because I didn't want to throw up in my friend's car because he was driving that day. And it was just like, dude, like I never want to do this to people ever again. And like I just done it in Japan, you know, like I was like a burden to them. So it was just like really bad. And so yeah, like now I am considering, you know, like microbiome treatments because holy shit, dude. It was like absolutely terrible. So that, like, in short, that is why I didn't make a YouTube video last year because I guess I almost died and I was in Japan or some shit. So I am bringing back the tradition by making a year in review slash YouTube video for my birthday, which is already passed because it's now like 1 in the morning. But cool, you know.